So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will be playing the 7-9 Washington football team. It should be an interesting game. I actually think that the matchups get very interesting when you're talking about these two teams. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the Buccaneers offense and how they should fare against the Washington football team defense. And then in another video, I'll talk about the other side of the ball. So let's just jump into it. And one of the things that Washington loves to do is play zone coverage, which is good and it's bad, right? Because the good thing about zone is I think it'll make things easier when you're going up against Antonio Brown and Chris Godwin and maybe Mike Evans, depending on his health. So that's definitely the bright side. The bad news is Tom Brady has made a living just, picking apart zone coverage defenses. Let's start off with this play. This is a good example of how you can be successful against a zone coverage play, but also what Washington does to take these kind of things away, where it's going to be a Tampa 2 style defense right here. And for Pittsburgh, they have Eric Ebron, who's going to try and get into a gap in coverage to Roethlisberger's left. You sort of see how that can work. So Big Ben's going to take the snap right here. They drop back into coverage, and you see that there is a window where you can make this throw, but it's a tough throw to make, right? Because if Roethlisberger throws it too low or too high, it could get picked. He pretty much has to get it exactly where he wants it. And Washington's doing a great job of closing that gap as soon as they see there is a gap there. They're very smart. Washington has a ton of high football IQ players. They might not necessarily have the most talented defense just in terms of pure talent. I mean, they certainly have their talented athletes as well, but really what sets them apart is their high football IQ, and they're going to make this just a difficult throw for Roethlisberger to make. However, Roethlisberger does make the throw. It's a good catch from Ebron, and they get a first down on it. So that's kind of what Washington does, is they just make things difficult. They're going to kind of put the ball in your court to some degree, make you make a good play. Less so about them trying to get a 0% chance of one of your plays working, and more so about just trying to get like a 10 to 15% chance of all of your plays working. I think this next play could really be a clear insight in what Tampa Bay could try to do against Washington. It's going to be zone coverage again for Washington, this time just a cover 2 zone. Washington, while they do like to play a lot of zone coverage, I think does a good job of mixing up their zone coverage, so that could actually, be helpful as opposed to some of these teams that just like to play one base coverage for most of the game, and that can definitely be an issue against Brady. When you mix up the different kinds of coverages, it makes things easier for your defense. But also, what Pittsburgh is going to do here is they have a receiver running over the middle, but they're also going to have a halfback chip Chase Young, which means block him for a second, and then he runs out and runs his route, and his route's just going to get underneath the zone coverage. That's how this play works. Roethlisberger takes the snap. He is going to look up in that direction. The chip works, so Roethlisberger had time now to make this throw. And you notice that a Washington player is going to crash in because he notices the halfback is completely open and could run and get some yards. But really, he shouldn't do this. This is a mistake because it's third down right here, and it's third down and long. So don't worry about that. Trust that you can run up and make a tackle. On top of this, you look, there's multiple Washington players in the area, and there's only 2 Pittsburgh players to have to worry about. There should have been a better rotation than what ended up happening. So this is a mistake from Washington. They don't make a ton of mistakes, but you have to take advantage of the mistakes when they're there. Big Ben realizes it, and he is going to throw over the middle. They get the first down there. That's not a great play from Washington. You're not going to see them do that too often, but the reason why I'm showing it is because these kind of things can happen if you run a lot of zone busters. You can get Washington to make mistakes. Not as many mistakes as most other teams, but you can still get them to make mistakes, and that's what you have to try and do. And the other point there was chipping Chase Young. I think it'll be a huge factor if you just have extra guys block. Like, take a look at this play. So what's going to be really interesting, I think, about this one is going to be the fact that, so it's, again, zone coverage, and again, a different type of zone coverage. Now it's cover 4, and this is an in-zone situation. And what they're going to do, it's third down and 7, and what Pittsburgh's going to do is to have Chase Claypool running a route that's going to get somewhat close to the sideline, just a route that could potentially get open. And what's interesting about this route is it's essentially going to turn into a one-on-one matchup because it'll be deep down the field, relatively speaking, since they're already in the red zone, but it'll be further down the field. And this could be basically a one-on-one matchup. But what's also interesting about this for the Pittsburgh Steelers is the protection that they have here. They're going to have Eric Ebron, a tight end, and also their halfback just block on this play. That's all they're doing. They're not focused on anything else. And I like that. I think that that's what Tampa Bay is really going to have to do against Washington if they're going to have success. Roethlisberger takes the snap, and Claypool is going to eventually get open. Takes him some time, and that's why, the extra time will help. Claypool was able to make the catch and get the first down. Didn't get the touchdown, but got the first down, and that's a huge play. One last play about Washington's defense before I get to Tampa Bay's offense is going to be this one, where what's going to happen is that this is going to be a cover 2 zone, and you have a receiver running a route that should get into this gap in coverage, the eye of the storm in a cover 2. It's past the middle linebacker, in between the 2 safeties. These things can work. But depending on how well it's played, the window can be very small. There is almost always a window, though. It just depends on how big is that window going to be. Roethlisberger takes a snap, but watch 53, the middle linebacker. That's John Bostic, and watch how he reads this play well and is staying deep to make sure he takes this window away. That's what Washington does, is they just make these reads really well and make things incredibly difficult on opposing offenses. Roethlisberger tries to fit it through that window anyways, but honestly, it was closer to getting intercepted than getting caught. That was just a tough window to make it through, and it's largely because of Bostic and also the defensive back deep reading the play well as well. It's just making good reads, and to me, that's kind of what Ron Rivera has sort of instilled in this defense, is that they get a lot of smart players, a lot of guys who know what they're supposed to do, and they do it well. The issue is they're playing Tampa Bay, a team that is really good at throwing the ball and is red hot right now. One of the things they've really been doing is by beating teams in the way that Washington likes to play. So I think a lot of people are talking about this as a bad matchup for Tampa Bay and for Tom Brady. I really don't see it that way at all. I actually think that you could argue it's the opposite. I think this could be a good matchup for Tampa Bay, and I know that sounds a little bit crazy, but just let me finish. So a play like this, Mike Evans, who may or may not play in this game, and I do think that matters, but if he is or isn't, really, Tampa Bay still has a ton of weapons. It's not like they completely rely on him. Mike Evans is going to run a deep route on this one. And in cover 3, typically what you like to do is the cornerback who is currently lined up with Evans, he essentially just follows Mike Evans. That's kind of what he's doing. He can pass Evans off, but at first, at least, he's going to follow Evans. And with Evans running a deep route over the middle, that's what's going to end up happening. And Tampa Bay is going to take advantage of this by having Godwin run a route that's basically going to the outside, then going to cut up field. And this route can work really well since the defensive back in that area will be out of the area. Brady takes the snap, and this just ran perfectly. I mean, immediately, the defensive back is out of the area, and you have to have someone else run over and try to play coverage. And to credit Atlanta, they're doing basically as good of a job as you could do on a play like this. I actually think this is good coverage, and if Atlanta watches the tape, they're probably saying, hey, we did what we could do, because you notice, really, 54 there for Atlanta is doing a great job at getting back and trying to cover Godwin. The issue is Brady is red hot, and Godwin is really good at making contested catches, and you have a linebacker on him. So that's just what Tampa Bay can do, is they can create these mismatches, especially against zone coverage, and so that's an issue. Brady makes this throw. It's a beautiful throw, and that's really a huge part of why I think Tampa Bay has been red hot as of late. People are kind of talking about all these different things, the play calling, what's going on. Honestly, a huge part of it is Brady just isn't missing throws the way he was earlier on in the season. Like, part of it is just Brady's playing better. Like this play, what's going to end up happening on this one, I think, is a clear way of showing what can go wrong for the Bucs. This was 4 weeks ago, so we're not talking too far ago. It's going to be zone coverage, cover 3 zone. Again, Washington doesn't play a ton of cover 3. They like to typically play cover 2 or cover 4, which has 2 safeties deep. So, a little bit different, but it's similar just idea. And honestly, the coverage itself has nothing to do with what I'm talking about here. Really, this is the concept that can be great against cover 3. You have Scotty Miller, who's going to kind of split the defense deep, run in between the safety and the defensive back in that area. But obviously, typically what you expect is the safety stays deep with Miller, and then Godwin gets open underneath. Brady's going to take this snap right here, and first off, the safety was way late in getting deep, so Scotty Miller was wide open down the field. Brady didn't notice this, and quite frankly, we have seen that from time to time. Brady's in a new offense, and he doesn't quite have it down as much as he had his New England offense down, so sometimes he will make a bad read. He's still really good at making reads. He's Tom Brady. Of course he's great at making reads, but he's maybe not quite as good as he was in seasons past, and that's largely just because of the new playbook, I think. But also Godwin's wide open, so that's part of why he's going to throw it to Godwin, is just because he's also open. So you see an open guy, you make that throw, even though sometimes there's a guy more open further down the field. It's hard to crush Brady for the decision. What is easy to crush Brady for is going to be the throw. He completely airmails this one, and listen, bad throws happen. Like, everyone makes a bad throw, typically in every game. Usually you're going to see some bad throws, at least a handful of bad throws throughout the course of a game. Honestly, you haven't seen many from Brady, though, these past couple of weeks. And I know people are going to bring up the defense, but you, like the last play I showed, that's against a not great defense in Atlanta, but it was also a perfect throw. So both things can be true. There's one more clear X factor, and that's the pass rush. And, you know, everyone's talking about Chase Young. To me, listen, I'm a biased Buccaneers fan. I'm far more worried about Montez Sweat. I think he is the better player right now. And I think that the good news for Tampa Bay is they've actually done a really good job at protecting when other teams only rush 4, which is what Washington likes to do a lot. Really, when Tampa Bay has their troubles, it's blitz protection. They've been at times god-awful in blitz protection. But that being said, they're still not perfect when other teams rush 4, and the clear weakness of this line could end up being left tackle Donovan Smith. Smith has had his clear troubles going up against great defensive linemen, and this could be interesting because, you know, Sweat and Young will both flip-flop either side. I think that puts Sweat on Donovan Smith. One of the few guys who's bigger than Donovan Smith. So Sweat's bigger than basically everybody. So put him there. I think that would make a lot of sense. Although footwork can be a big way to beat Smith. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. But, you know, Tristan Wirfs has had an incredible season at right tackle, especially considering the fact that he's a rookie. So I would avoid him and try to put my pressure on Smith. So whoever you think is best to beat Smith, that's what I would do. Like, take a look at this play. It's going to be going up one-on-one against Khalil Mack, who's obviously an elite edge rusher. And that's the thing about Smith, is he's not a bad player. I don't want to seem like I'm bashing him. He's actually really good when he's playing mediocre to bad edge rushers. It's just the elite guys that can give him some trouble, which, in fairness, elite guys give everyone trouble. That's why they're elite guys. And so it could be kind of interesting to see how good are these Washington edge rushers playing a guy who you need good edge rusher play to beat typically, but maybe they can do that. Khalil Mack is going to make an instant move, get by, and make a quick sack on Brady, and then says something, and I don't know what's going on there, but really just that kind of just goes to show. So, you know, Smith went too far to the outside because Mack was going with some speed rushes. Then he's able to get to the inside and make a quick move. Smith can get outsmarted. Smith can get beat with footwork more than anything. Smith's a big guy, but he's not necessarily the most agile. So, you know, he's strong, but he's not necessarily agile. So that's a big way to beat him. And that's going to be huge because obviously we know about this Washington football team pass rush, but really that's going to be the key. And I just don't know if they can get pressure consistently with 4. I think that typically the way to beat this Buccaneers team is to blitz. I think you have to blitz. And Washington, they do blitz. It's not like they don't blitz, but they don't blitz a ton. And they're probably going to be a little bit out of their comfort zone blitzing more, but I think that's what they should do. I think this ends up being a pretty high possession game. I think both teams will get a few cracks at this one. I think Tampa Bay is going to do well on offense. I actually do. I think they're going to put up 34, and we'll say it'll be like a 12-possession game. So 34 sounds like a lot. I think it'll be a bit high possession, which is why I think they'll score a little bit more than people might expect. 34 feels right. That would be 4 touchdowns and 2 field goals. And how much will the Washington football team score? Well, I'll talk about that in my next video I make where I break down Alex Smith and everything like that. I'm also going to give my prediction this Wednesday on my podcast, 9 o'clock. Stay on the lookout for that. And hey, follow me on Twitter. You can find my Twitter in the description. So follow me there if you want to hear me make dumb jokes about sports there. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. And until next time, have a good one.